We have our founders of School Equity Solutions, and my pleasure. Up on deck that's coming on is Eric Carlton and Dr. Jonathan Brice. I believe we're up on deck. Are you guys ready for?
Absolutely, and excited.
Absolutely.
Hey, Eric, how are you? It's good to see you.
Likewise.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining this morning and agreeing for me to interview you. I so appreciate it. So, Eric and Jonathan, will you please just share a bit of your background, how you guys decided to work together, and tell us about how School Equity Solutions came to be?
I'll start it off. So, Eric Carlton from Maryland. Jonathan and I actually attended undergraduate school together. And so that's where we became acquainted. And then we both ended up going into education. I was a high school special ed teacher for a few years, and then a comprehensive high school assistant principal, and then principal. Jonathan and I worked together at that principal at that school, the high school. And then I departed to come to Chicago in 2002 to help my former superintendent operate a bunch of therapeutic day schools around the country. Within 10 months, I stepped out on faith and said, I can do this too. It was not as easy as it had appeared. And so from 2003 until about 2017, we had about 10 schools, partner and I, that we had schools in Chicago, Milwaukee, Miami, and a couple in Detroit. We closed and sold all of them, and except for one in Milwaukee in 2017. And then I said, I'm retired. I will never go back in this business again. I'm tired. I made my contribution, and lo and behold, I encounter Jonathan again, and I'll let him pick it up from there.
So good morning, Jonathan Brice, one of the co-founders. And as Eric mentioned, we started by being acquaintances back in undergrad. We worked together. My journey is a little different than Eric's. Mine is a little more traditional. I was a teacher in the county, then became an assistant principal. I left the county to go work on my doctorate at Harvard University. I did that. I came out of that after completing coursework. I went and did an internship with a superintendent, and then I actually moved around the country doing some work in various areas in central office, everything from communications, research and assessment technology, and then really found my niche in student services in all facets, from counseling and attendance to discipline and things like that. And so I was a school superintendent as well as a deputy assistant secretary at the U.S. Department of Education. And one of the things that I noticed with that national scan was the absolute lack of effective strategies and implementation of those strategies for school districts and schools to reduce discipline and behavior issues, and to increase the level of strategies and commitment to social emotional welfare programs. And so in conversations with Eric, we actually decided that this would be a place where we thought that we could actually add to the strategies and the implementation and execution for schools and for school districts. And as a result, School Equity Solutions was founded.
Wow, you guys are amazing and awesome. And my goodness, it's such critical work. you know, as you look to the future, you know, and school equity specifically, what are some emerging trends or challenges that you all are seeing on the horizon that we should be considering as we are working to design more equitable systems? Can you share your thinking on that?
Eric, you want
Sure.
to go?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. We do a lot of work in Louisiana, and that work is really centered around how to eliminate the disparities that are, you know, related to socioeconomic status, race, and other factors, primarily around instruction and discipline. And so we see that that there are these disparities that exist. They are not intentional. You know, people go into the field, they want all students to perform, but they don't necessarily know how to ensure, because we all have different lenses, we all have different experiences, and there are all kinds of barriers that exist, right? And now, because we have social media, because we have a greater awareness by, you know, all of our stakeholders, it has become very clear that these disparities that have been in existence for decades and decades, now it's to the point where, you know, it is illuminated. And so districts typically do not come to us until they are in trouble. So they have legal challenges that have told them that they need to find remedies. And if they do not find those remedies, they will be taken over by the state or the federal government. And so our role is to come in and provide professional development. It is to provide assessments. We look at instruction. We look at the culture and climate. We look at leadership. We look at the entire perspective of and offerings of school districts. And then we select one area and we say, hey, listen, we're not going to be able to address all of these areas, but let's select one. So, you know, primarily at the moment, we're looking at discipline. How do we reduce the number of suspensions and expulsions of Black and Brown students in multiple districts? How do we do that? And so we see that as a critical challenge that many school districts face, and that's not just in the South. That's, you know, that's nationally, right? We know that exists. There are some other emerging trends that that are out there. You think about technology, right? You think about, and as Todd was sharing, right? The lack of access. And so one of our roles is also to work with districts in making sure that marginalized communities have access and have exposure to a variety of platforms so that young people are able to meet with success and be able to compete. And you would think, as Chad was saying earlier, we assume that of course they have access. All students have access, right? Well, I can tell you that Todd shared a number of resources, and so did Chad, right here, that I'm 33 years in this field and I had never heard of. And so, and I'm constantly reading and seeking. So imagine our students, imagine our families, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of our role. Then, and I'll share this one and I'll pass it on. Then you think about this whole idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. People are inundated with that. People are intimidated by that. People are tired of that. And really what it comes down to is, how do we ensure that everyone feels that they have a voice, that they're able to contribute, and that they simply belong? And so we help people to make that paradigm shift where and have some sense of comfort so that they are disarmed and willing to now address those issues that center around DEI. John?
So
And,
good.
Eric did a really great job of encapsulating areas of our focus and the different trends that we're seeing. I'll just add the other trend, the actually two other trends that we see. One is the issue of trauma. And so many of our young people, as well as our staffs, are experiencing trauma in the aftermath of the pandemic, the increased use of social media, and the level of anxiety that is creating among our students. And then they bring that sense of trauma into the school building, and staff have to deal with that. And the use of cell phones, it creates a huge issue. And here's the other thing that we also recognize as a trend. The trend is the lack of access on the part of our families and communities to having a voice or a seat at the table so that their views and their concerns can be heard at the schoolhouse about how their students are being taught, what they're being taught, and whether or not they're included in the process. And so we see these as trends that hopefully, in the work that we're able to do with districts around the country, we're able to address some of these things so that families, students, staff feel, as Eric mentioned, a stronger sense of belonging, a better connection to the school, because we know with that connection, that is just one more step that will allow students to be ready and able to receive good first instruction.
Really good. Thank you so much. And I think that Eric, and I just want to lift that up, this idea that we're quote unquote tired of DEI, and it's really, that's just a nomenclature. It's just a label. What we're really talking about, and let's talk about the real conversation, is how are we ensuring that everybody feels that they belong in that community? And so when you start talking about that do they belong? Do your parents feel like they can be there? Do your students? Now we're not talking DEI, are we? We're talking about how we're creating a safe community where everybody has a place. So I really appreciate all you all lifting that up and delineating that. It's very insightful. Thank you. As we look into the future, and beyond the traditional classrooms, right? So beyond traditional classrooms, what are the innovative structures or approaches that you all might envision that could better address the diverse needs of our learners and navigate some of the stuff that's happening there, the trauma, the disconnection, the disengagement from schooling? What are things that we can do to create innovation to pull people back in and to pull students back in? Your thoughts, Jonathan?
Yeah, so there are actually two things that I think school districts are really grappling with right now in terms of innovation. Number one is how to personalize the learning experience for young people. And by that, I mean this idea that all students are sort of in lockstep with each other for 12 years is problematic. So we certainly see an increase in dual enrollment programs. We see an increase in career centers being structured and built. And in some of the places that we see working, we actually find that the school districts are working to create multiple pathways for young people so that they can all reach the same standard, but do it in a way that is more appropriate for them. And this really comes back to that sense of belonging. It comes back to that sense of community voice, as well as the supportive structures that schools need to have. So a student does not need to sit in the traditional classroom for 12 years, maybe starting in the 10th grade, the 11th grade, and certainly the 12th grade, they have an opportunity to do internships, externships, other opportunities where they are able to meet with some of the desires that they have while earning high school and or college credit, as well as participate in the type of social emotional learning programs that we recommend, whether those programs be related to conflict resolution, whether they be related to peace circles and things like that, that help to build that positive culture. So that's the first thing that I think we see. Here's the second thing that we see, which is really, really, I think, going to be interesting for us. The second piece that we see is schools actually starting to reimagine how they use time, right? Time is so valuable, right? We think about our resources, we think about having money, we think about staff, but now the issue of time. And some districts are, and some states are removing the time requirement and giving districts more flexibility. And that goes directly into the type of programming that they can offer for young people. Coming out of the pandemic, there are a number of young people that actually felt like, you know what, I actually like the independence that comes from computer-based learning. And those are things that I want to do. And it also aligns with the work that we do in terms of reducing discipline and behavioral issues, because some of those issues arise because the students actually don't feel comfortable in school. Maybe they are not comfortable because they're subject to bullying, and because they're working individually at home or in a community-based program, the issue of bullying doesn't come into play. And so we think that those are two things that are innovative that school districts are starting to look at even more.
And even to your point there, Jonathan, I had just read an article. I think maybe it was in the Times, but it was about a pilot that has been starting to happen for 4-day school weeks. So instead of a 4-day work week, we're looking at a 4-day school week. And so we're starting to see some pilots that are happening around the country, to your point. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Eric, did you have something to offer additionally to what Jonathan said?
Yeah, just a personal story. It's 2 years ago, I got back into the school business. Literally, an organization gave us a school. And so myself, Jonathan, and another partner, we took it on, and we're currently about to open 2 more. And what's interesting is they're all male therapeutic day schools for students who have serious emotional problems. And it was very difficult to find in-person teachers. So we explored having virtual teachers. And we did it on a pilot basis, and it worked well. And so now our school, the instructors are all virtual. And what's interesting is, and then we have 2 paraprofessionals in each of the classrooms. The classrooms are 10 students with 2 paraprofessionals and then a virtual teacher. That has worked extremely well. And then districts decided, hey, listen, we have some young people who have such challenging behavioral issues that they don't work well in school. What do you have to offer? And we said, well, because we have teachers who are virtual, why don't we give students the opportunity to participate virtually? And so we've done that. And for the first time in many of these students' lives, they are meeting with phenomenal success because academically, they have it. They have everything that they need. It is social emotionally that they cannot function. They do not feel comfortable being in a classroom with others, but virtually they participate. They are highly engaged. The behaviors that existed when they were in person are eliminated. And now they're meeting with success. So it's just, we're looking at alternative ways to meet the unique needs of students. And that's happening across the country. We're seeing it everywhere.
I love it. Flexibility. There we go. I love it. I love the creativity and the innovation in there and meeting students where they're at. So absolutely critical. Thank you for sharing that model, Eric, and kudos to y'all. That was very, very clever. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, how does technology, well, we just heard virtual, right? So, other than a virtual learning, are there other ways that technology can play a role in helping us serve historically underserved populations, or for those who may be struggling? Are there different models other than virtual learning that you might consider?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that I think schools have started to implement that hold promise. And so one of those things that holds promise is, we all remember that schools used to have like a suggestion box out in front of the office.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, given the fact that it's 2024, students often, especially the older they get, feel really put off by the idea that they would walk by and someone would see them slipping a note or something into the suggestion box. And so some schools have taken to creating online anonymous suggestion boxes that allow students to give suggestions to school admin and also to share information, so that they can, it really is based on the see something, say something model, which is really paramount in our school buildings. And it's another way for young people to feel safe, to be able to share information with the individuals that need it, but not suffer sort of the negative feedback that would come if individuals see them putting a note there. So that's the first thing. Here's the second thing. Many of our schools nationally have a range of online tools that help young people to navigate their feelings, to discuss their emotions. And so whether it be advisory lessons that are online that students can work through, whether it be different programming that they can actually log in, and it helps them to think about, oh, how am I feeling today? What's my mood today? And those types of things. We see an increasing not just presence of those types of programs, but we see schools expanding their use as a way to help students start to really, well, not even start, to continue the process of self-regulation and building their capacity to manage their own emotions.
Very nice. Very nice. What role do you all believe that community partnerships can play to effectively address the student unique needs? You know, do you have some insights on that you might share with us?
Absolutely. So when you think about community partners, it is incumbent upon schools, school districts to invite the community into the building. Our students, there are all kinds of resources in the community. And when we only focus on just our school or our school district and we don't reach out and build those relationships, then our students miss out on the resources. So you think about all of the community organizations that are within most communities, whether it's mentoring programs, after school programs, all of the social services that students need and their families need. And when those needs are not met, it impacts whether or not they attend school, they participate in school, and they're able to achieve at high levels. And so we recognize the importance of, you know, educational entities going into the community and making them feel a part of the school community. And schools don't necessarily always know how to do that. And so we teach them how to do that. The other piece as it relates to the community partnerships is making sure, because many students did not meet with success. Many families do not feel comfortable entering a school building. So then that means we have to go into homes. We have to go to where they are and where they are comfortable, and facilitating meetings, facilitating surveys in their communities, in their homes, in spaces where they feel like they have a little more control and they're not intimidated, because there's often a language barrier. And you think about the number of students. There are many who've had awesome experiences, right? But there are many who have not. And so this whole sense of belonging, this whole sense of making sure that students, parents, guardians, community members have voice. Are we creating safe spaces where all of these varying stakeholders have a voice, and that they are welcomed, and that not only are they going to be heard, but based upon what we hear, are we going to execute? Is it falling on deaf ears, or are we actually going to execute? And when we do that, that's when they start becoming comfortable moving into the schoolhouse, partnering with school districts. And that really hones in when you think about family engagement. How do we ensure that everyone in the family is a member of the school community? It's not just the student.
No,
It's every member of the family, and not necessarily the traditional family. It could be the next door neighbor who is very instrumental in that young person's life, right? It could be someone in a whole nother capacity, but we don't know that if we don't build, and I think Angel focused on this, if we don't build those relationships.
So yeah, so there's one other thing that I would add that really explains in detail what Eric is talking about. So when I ran student services in a 75,000 student district, we developed the concept of braiding. And the concept is simply, we would look at one of our students, and this was a large urban school district in a big city in America. and we would look at a particular student, and we would find that the student had multiple touches. The student had a counselor from the district. They had a counselor from social services. They may have had a counselor from juvenile services. They may have had somebody else. And so what we realized was that the lack of communication among from the school district to community partners means that students are getting redundant touches instead of coordinated touches. What we want is the coordination, because the coordination allows for a more efficient and effective use of limited resources. So here's how it plays out. So that student that may have been getting 4 touches from counselors, from the school, social services, juvenile services, and an outside agency, may only have really needed 2 of those touches, which mean those 2 other touches could be used and redistributed to another needy student who needed support and services. And so that's really what we try to do. We try to make sure that our schools and our districts are braiding their resources with community organizations and other governmental organizations so that they can strengthen and spread the impact that they're doing.
Absolutely brilliant, you all. Thank you so much. I am so incredibly glad that you are out there doing this work. Now, as we wind down our time together, we do have, I think, a couple of questions in the chat that we might want to address here. Let's see. And so Todd, who has asked, Eric and Jonathan, great work and right on point for raising up communities and their access to situated learning. Love that you build community and see students and meet them where they are. Is there a reference or resource you can share about your work and the tools that you use? Do you have something there that you might be able to? Oh, Jonathan did. Please, Jonathan.
Yeah. So I just put something in our chat. So one of the districts that we are working with, and it's interesting, as we work with this district, we are working with a population that doesn't often get the level of professional development and professional learning, right? And Eric explained it really well when we started working with that group of individuals. They are the individuals that see, that touch, that interact with young people immediately as soon as the day begins. These are often the hall monitors, the security personnel, the paraprofessionals that are interacting with students as they first walk into the building. And so what we've done is created a workbook that helps them to think about some, 3 things that we think are critically important. We think the issue of trauma and understanding trauma, critically important for this population. We think the issue of communication and as well as climate and culture, critically important for this group. And then we also think that this group needs to make sure that they have the right attitude. And so we really spend some time working with them to build their capacity so that they are not shocked by maybe the ways that trauma in students represents or is presented, and that instead of reacting, they are able to set the interaction aside and focus on support and help for the student. So we would recommend people take a look at that workbook that we've put together.
Very nice. I also see that Eric has dropped in the chat. I think it's a link to a Zoom meeting. Is that correct, Eric?
That is correct, for May 10th, 10 a.m.
May 10th at 10 a.m.
On how to create cultures of belonging.
At 10 a.m. And it's how to create cultures of belonging. How much does that cost for us to attend, y'all?
It is free.
Free? Look at you all. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. So Absolutely. May 10th at 10 o'clock, and it's again, how to create cultures of belonging, and that is on Zoom, right?
That
Okay,
is correct.
and if somebody who may be listening to a recording might want to get access to that meeting, Eric, could we have them, or Jonathan, could they reach out to one of y'all and get the Zoom link if they happen, right?
Absolutely. I'll place our
Sure.
emails
Are they in
in the
chat?
chat.
Okay, they
Typing
will
it
down
now.
Eric, would you read out your email, please?
Sure. It is Carlton, Carlton, at schoolequitysolutions.com. And Jonathan's email is jbrice, BRICE, at schoolequitysolutions.com.
Very good. That sounds like that is going to be an amazing. Is it an hour? Should we calendar an hour for time to attend that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. Well, I just want to thank you for specifically, Eric, you specifically, Jonathan, you all are doing critical work. And just know, whatever I can do, I'm going to be shouting the work that you're doing from the rooftops, from here to there and everywhere in between, because this is important work. It is the work. So thank you so much.